Hi, everyone. This is The Film Whisperers on Bent TV, a show where two movie nerds talk all things film through a contemporary lens. My name is Matthew.
And I'm Saj.
Well, Saj, we have previously spoken about our favorite book to TV or movie adaptations, which I felt was quite easy because we love reading and we love watching films. So, it probably wasn't too hard to think of some examples of ones that we really, really liked where they've kind of crossed over. But now, as we obviously always do, I thought we could focus on some of the ones we didn't like or really bad adaptations. And I must admit, I kind of found it hard to find some examples. I mean, how about you?
Before we go into examples, Matt, I was just going to ask. So, there are so many times where we've heard the phrase, "Oh, it's not as good as a book."
Almost every time. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to ask a very obvious question, but I think we should just quickly talk about it. Why do you think this is the case? Why do you think that there's always this thing where we always find out there's going to be a movie adaptation of a book. We get excited and we go, oh, I'm definitely going to watch it, and then we get disappointed.
You can only fit so much into a film or even a TV show, and almost every time you're going to be able to pack a lot more into a book. So whenever you read a book that gets adapted, there's always so much more in the book than you get in the TV show or the film. But I guess for me, I know that. So like when I watch an adaptation, I'm not expecting the movie or the TV show to have every single thing, every single theme or subtext or nuance that the book had. So I think you can still have a really amazing TV show or a movie, but I think, from my opinion, I think it's usually just because they obviously miss a lot of things that are usually in the book that they can't translate, or I mean, what do you think?
Yes, I definitely think that's the case, but I also think that and again, I'd like to know your opinion, but and Harry Potter is an example of this, and we're not even going to go there because it's too much of a fandom thing to. But I feel as if when people read Harry Potter, everyone had their view on what every character looked like. And it was, I think, once the film adaptation came up, and luckily they made it work. But then at the same time, there were so many people that pretty much said, "That's not how I pictured Harry. That's not how I pictured Snape. That's not how I pictured McGonagall, or whatever." And it's because when you are reading a book, especially if it's fantasy, your imagination goes wild, and you have this idea of who this person or how this person looks like, especially if it's not someone who is I don't want to say human, but who is not your conventional human-ish character. So, like for example, in some of the Lord of the Rings books or in some of the Harry Potter books, you have to let your imagination tell you what these characters look like. And when a film comes out, and when it's not, if it doesn't match the criteria of who you thought it should look like, you then go, oh.
So that's a really good point, because like you're right. When you read a book, you have this completely realized idea of what everything's going to look like and how it's going to behave, and so it's never going to look exactly how you anticipate it will when it gets translated. So I totally agree with that too.
So, having said that, is there a particular book that you've read that you've just, when you've seen the film, you've just gone, oh no?
That's a really good question. I think that the one that springs to mind is actually randomly the Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. So I think it came out in like the 2000s with like Jim Carrey and Meryl Streep and all
Yes.
this. And as a young person back then, I had read all of the Lemony Snicket's books. I think there were 12 or 13 in the series. And I really, really, really enjoyed them because they were just so wild and fun. And they were just very I really liked them as a young person. And so when the film came out, I was excited to watch it. And while the movie itself, like the set design, the cinematography isn't bad. Like it's actually quite interesting how they built the world that was in the book. And then I should say the movie is only based on the first three novels in the series. Um, I think just left a lot to be desired. Like I think the acting was a bit off. I think the script was a bit bad. I think that I mean, obviously they can't include everything from the books as I've said previously, but I feel like they just chopped through things really quickly. And even though the book's aimed for young adults or younger people, it just felt like there was a lot in the book that they missed out on covering. And I think it didn't do particularly well because obviously they never continued it. I mean, there were 12 books in the series, and the first film only covered the first three, and then they just kind of left it. So, I think that was probably the one that I was disappointed with. Have you seen that one?
I have, and interestingly, because I've never read Lemony Snicket. I actually thought it was a decent movie because I did not have that connection. I thought some of the characters were really quirky. I remember the Meryl Streep character was really funny. But again, this is what happens when you don't have that affiliation with literature. You just you don't know what to expect. You just go in, and if it's a film as a standalone product done well, yeah, you just kind of go, yep, that's a good film. But yeah, that's my opinion. So I did not read the book. I like the film.
I think that's such a good point, Saj. Is like if you haven't read the book, I mean, you can actually completely enjoy something, but it shifts so much when you have an attachment to like the source material, like the book. But yeah, so I think that's the one that I would pick out of my examples. But what about you?
Some of the books that I read, it's not always books that get turned into film a lot of the time, because I guess I just read different books. But one type of book that does come to mind, where I thought the book was really good and the film was really bad, was the Nanny Diaries. And I know, yeah, I know it's a really random. It's a really random book, and I just think that the reason as to why I really liked this book was because I believe there was a character in there called Mrs. X. I think that was her name, and the way that character was written, there was something so um, attractive about her, in the sense, it was the way they wrote her made me sort of think of her as, in a weird way, like a corporate Morticia Adams, if that makes sense. She was really posh. She was quite well off, and she hired this nanny just to look after the kid, and she barely wanted anything to do with the kid, And as the title said, it was about the nanny. And I guess I just really fell in love with this character because it was just so quirky. And then when the film came out, they cast Laura Linney and they really normalized it. They normalized her character. And I remember thinking, this is not what I imagined. And again, this goes back to that imagination thing that we were talking about earlier. And I know it's something really minor, but and I don't think the movie did well anyway. But still, it was an okay film, but it wasn't great, and it was definitely a disappointing adaptation of a book.
I have not seen the film and I've not read the book either. I do know of it though. Do you feel like, I guess similar to my instance, that if you hadn't read the book, that you could enjoy the movie, or do you think as a movie it's still just kind of like, even if you haven't read the book?
I think if I hadn't read the book, I would have definitely enjoyed it. I think it was because I went with this idea of seeing this Madam X, I think her name's Madam X in it, and wanting to see this fabulous character come to life. And then when it didn't come to life the way I wanted it to, it was a bit disappointing. That's all the time we have for Ben TV, for Film Whispers. Thank you very much.